All right, welcome back to another episode of the Hunt Suburbia podcast. Today it's just going to be me. I'm going to do a quick kind of preview of the season, what I've been up to, scouting wise in the last couple of weeks, and we'll do a recap of Huntstock, the good things from this year, things that maybe we'll improve upon for next year. And give you guys some teasers about what to expect for next year at Huntstock, because it's going to be pretty incredible. We've already been working a lot on getting some new seminar speakers, some big names coming in. So we'll talk a little bit about that. But I haven't been on a podcast since the How Blood podcast, which had to be more than a month ago now. So just giving you guys an update. For me, I've been behind the eight ball as I have been the last couple of years here, since my spring and summer is so busy with Huntstock that I feel behind. I definitely am behind to what I'm used to. Normally by now I've got all my cameras in the woods. They've been in the woods for 3 months. I've got stands and sets already. I've started to hone in on, where they're hanging out in the summertime and get an idea where they're going to be in the beginning of the season, early season, but I just haven't been able to do that. So I started putting cameras out last week. I've been into 2 pieces of woods. One piece of woods that I know that I've hunted the last few years quite a bit. This piece was where that giant 6-pointer was that I passed with the bow a couple seasons ago. Got that one on camera. And then I ended up shooting that one with the Woodman Arms muzzleloader in December. This patch of woods, I really love it. I've got a dynamite spot that I call the Swamp Pinch. And it's just a spot between 2 swamps. There's some great little ridges and small terrain features that funnel deer through there. They'd be going through there anyway, because it is a small piece of land going between 2 swamps. But the added, funnel features in there, an annual scrape right there, and the fact that it's just covered with oak trees, it just makes it an awesome spot. So every year I keep an eye on that. 2 years ago, it was great in there. That's when that the big 6 was in there. There was a big 10 in there and a nice 8-pointer that was going through. It's one of those spots that I don't see deer. I see deer in there, even a deer, maybe once out of every 4 sits, even on a good acorn year. So it's low deer density, but it's one of those spots, if you just sit it out, especially during the rut, you're going to have a chance at a buck, and usually a pretty nice buck. So anyway, that spot, I went back into there this year and checked it out. I avoided it last year because I went in, I don't know, probably around this time last year, and somebody had set up a stand about about 75 yards from my stand tree. And it was a new stand. Nobody was there the year before, but it looked like they had done quite a bit of work. They cut shooting lanes. They disguised their stand, with evergreen boughs and things like that. And also last year, it just didn't have, it was no acorns in there. So I ended up avoiding that spot and kind of exploring that patch of woods more. It's a big public patch of woods, and I explored the other sides of it, put cameras around, and that's where I got that really big 11-pointer with the kicker. He was a monster buck that was in there. He was in those patches, that patch of woods, as was a giant 8-pointer that I don't know, probably scored 150 as an 8. So I did hunt that piece of public, but I just avoided that Swamp Pinch area, which I love that area. I avoided it, went to some other spots. I didn't hunt in there a ton. I was hunting a lot closer to home a lot last year because there was better acorns and there was just a more abundant group of mature bucks in that area. So I did a lot of hunting close to home. I hunted the same patch of woods most of the year last year, and I saw activity the entire time. It's just one of those, that spot's one of those spots where the access is awesome. It's really hard to access. You got to be creative. And then, but getting in there just seems, the way that I access it, the way that the prevailing winds are most of the time, and where I sat in that spot, it's going to be one of my go-to spots for a while. So I avoided this big public piece last year for those reasons. That big 11 pointer got killed. Actually, I checked the camera when I was in there last week, and the last day that I hunted in there was December 15th. I put up a trail camera. I hunted a new spot in there that I just wanted to check out. Put up a trail camera kind of at the base of the tree that I was hunting in there. And I had a pretty good vantage point. I was overlooking this creek, and then there was a little valley between a couple of ridges. There were some acorns. And anyways, I hunted the whole day. Didn't see anything. And at last light, I heard a deer slowly approaching. I don't know if he caught my wind or the thermals or something. Got carried to him, but I could tell this was a cautious deer approaching. And I don't know, for some reason, I just thought it was a buck. So I ended up, hearing that deer all the way through last light. And then I was, it was close to me in the tree. I sat in the tree for maybe a half hour after last light. And then I just said, screw it, I got to get down from this tree. And I got down, and that deer blew at me, and I left. So I haven't been back in there until this year. And I checked that camera, and this was the first picture that was on the camera that night after I got down. This is at 6:49 that night. I think that is the big 11 pointer that has a split. And anyway, he ended up getting killed, but I was this close for him coming in and getting a shot. I had a muzzleloader too. I never saw the deer. I just heard him around me. So I was that close to getting that buck. And it's just funny because you don't know that until you check cameras, and sometimes you never would know it. But it was just kind of cool. Anyway, he got shot, and so there's a giant 8-pointer in there. Let me see if I can find that picture. And he's the last really big buck in there that I know of. I'm sure there's going to be a couple more that I haven't seen yet, because it's a big patch of woods. But he's a dandy. Where is it here? Here he is. I don't know if you're going to be able to see this that well. Yeah, really, really hard to see it, but he's a big 8-pointer. So I don't know if he survived the season. I hope he did. That's why I put some cameras up in there. The acorns are back in my swamp pinch spot. I'm hoping that guy shows up. I can see what he turned into this year. And there's tons of acorns back in that spot too. So I got high hopes in there. I think I put up 4 cameras, 3 regular cameras, and 1 old Moultrie mobile camera. So I bought Moultrie mobile cameras in 2019. They were the first cell cams I ever bought. I bought 6 of them, and 3 of them are still working great. 2 of them retired to wear and tear. They go through hard weather and stuff up here. And then 1 is just in this swamp, this remote swamp that I had to bushwhack to get in there. I had to hop from mound to mound, super wet swamp. It was hell getting in there. And that camera, when I put it up, the very first picture that night after we left was a mature buck. And then after that, never got another good buck on there again. It's funny how that happens sometimes. But that's been sitting in there since probably 2020. And I haven't gone in. I keep telling myself, well, when it freezes, when it gets really cold, the swamp freezes, it'd be a lot easier to get in there and get that camera. I just haven't gone back in to get it. So, Chris, if you're listening to this, Chris went out and helped me hang that camera. Go ahead and go grab it, buddy. I mean, if you want it, it's yours. But anyway, the other funny thing is, the other day when I was in that spot, I had one of those old Moultrie mobile cameras, been on the same tree for the last 2 years in that swamp pinch area. And I just brought in new batteries, changed the batteries, and where is this? The first picture that I got. Well, it's on my Instagram. You guys can go to the Instagram at Hunt Suburbia. And I spent probably 25 minutes there changing the battery, walking in front of the camera, opening up a scrape, peeing in it, blah, blah, blah. And when I left, when I finally left that place to go, check those other cameras in that patch, I I didn't get any pictures sent to me. I had it set to immediate, but I didn't get any pictures sent to me while I was there. So I was wondering, you know, what was going on there. Maybe the service was bad, blah, blah, blah. But 20 minutes later, I got texted a ton of pictures. The first 25, 30 of them were me in front of that camera, making the scrape, etc. And then the next one was 20 minutes after I left, and it was a nice, probably 2-year-old 7-pointer in velvet, high rack, got some palmation started. Really nice deer. He's got some awesome potential. And it's just cool. Sometimes those deer, if you haven't been in the patch of woods, you go in there, you put a camera up, or you're just changing the battery. They're not used to seeing human intrusion, in some of these bigger patches of woods. They're going to get curious and come in and check it out once you've left the area. And that's happened to me a lot. And it was just cool to see that happen again. But that was, one of my 2019 multi-mobile cameras, the cameras that got me into the cell camera game. And on that note, just a quick announcement for the podcast that multi-mobile will be sponsoring this year. So these are the new Edge 2 Pro cameras. They don't take an SD card. And I'm just really excited to actually get these out into the woods and test them out. And I'll let everybody know how they work throughout the season. But I'm going all in because I don't have a lot of time to scout anymore in the summertime, because I hunt, far distances away from my house a lot of the time. And because there's some really nice bucks I'm after this year, I'm going to be putting those 20 cameras, deploying them basically on an outer perimeter of my farthest hunting spots to keep an eye on a few special bucks. So I'll let everybody know how that's going throughout the year. They're going to have an ad read on every podcast. I'm working on getting like a discount code or something for my followers. If you like what you're seeing, you want to get something, all of those details will come down the road. But thanks to Multi-Mobile for sponsoring the podcast this season. If you guys listen to the podcast for a long time, early on, I got some sponsors when the podcast just started. The last couple of years, there haven't been any sponsors on the podcast. I've just basically been promoting Huntstock through the podcast. But it's important. The podcast gets a lot of views, a lot of downloads, and I should be focusing a little more time on getting some partners so that I can make a living off the podcast a little bit. I've been neglecting it for Huntstock. But this year you might see a couple of new sponsors pop up, but I promise you guys this, they're only going to be brands that I use, brands that I actually trust and love and believe in. I would never, just take a check from somebody and promote something to you that I don't use and that I don't think helps me in my hunting process and helps me get bigger, mature bucks and just the way that I hunt. So maybe there will be some more sponsors. Maybe it's just Multi-Mobile for this year, but big thanks to Multi-Mobile. Gotten to know those guys at Huntstock the last couple of years. They're from the South, obviously a staple in the outdoors industry, and they believe in what they've been seeing at Huntstock, which is an energized Northeast. It's hardworking hunters. It's really good hunters, and they know that it's tough hunting up here, and they believe in all that. They see our passion, and so you're going to see a lot more of Multi-Mobile in the Northeast over the next few years. So let's talk about a couple of the bucks that I'm going to be hunting this year. We talked about that big 8-pointer in my big public land piece near that swamp pinch spot that I love to hunt. I don't know if he's alive yet, but hopefully he is. If he is, I will be focusing some time on him. There is a really big 10-pointer in another big public land piece that's a good distance away from my house. And that buck first got on my radar last year. I think I got a video of him 2 years ago as a 9-pointer going through, and he was a beautiful 9-pointer. But just one video of him. And then last year, this was another place that actually, this is the place where in my video from the payoff that I put out last year, this is where I missed that big 10-pointer that was wide and his antlers kind of curved out, crested the hill. Actually, I shot him in the neck. I thought he died, but I say I missed him because I never recovered him. You guys know the whole reloading fiasco that I had. That buck's still alive too, by the way, but he's really old and he's not nearly as impressive as this other 10-pointer that's in these woods. I mean, this one is probably about a 160-inch perfect typical 10. I mean, just a beauty. And so I got quite a few videos of him last year. I got away from the places that I was hunting in that patch of woods again because of acorns. Where I was 2 and 3 years ago in that patch of woods where there were tons of acorns and I had lots of big buck activity. Last year it was dead in there. There were no acorns. So it forced me to kind of find new pockets in those woods and get cameras onto the other sides and back corners and things like that. And that's when I started to get pictures of this 10-pointer. So I planned actually to go in there and try to shed hunt, try to find his sheds. But last year, I had 2 Moultrie mobile edge cameras. This is the Edge 2 Pros over here, but I had 2 Moultrie mobile edge cameras last year. And I didn't have to go in there and shed hunt because a dude was walking by holding both of them. And you could see there's no mistaking them. They're huge antlers. And, he got caught by my camera going by. And, anyways, it saved me from having to go in and put 2-3 days boots on the ground in those woods to look for those antlers because I knew they'd been picked up. But so I know that another hunter at least is on that deer. That should be fun. I haven't gone into those woods yet. I'm planning to, after I record this podcast, go in there and drop 4 or 5 of these new Edge 2 Pros in there and hopefully see if he's alive, see what he is. Maybe he's a 12-pointer, maybe he's a bigger 10, maybe put on some new inches. All that stuff is just super exciting every year to see what happened to those deer. So again, I don't know if he survived. I know he did up until like February because I had him on camera, and then I know he dropped his antlers, but you never know what happens. A deer could die, get a disease, get hit by a car. So I'm hoping to locate him. And there's a nice 8-pointer in those woods too. There's a couple other nice bucks. I'd like to also put an end to the story from last year with that 10, who's probably going to be 10 or 11 years old now, and who knows what his rack did this year. But so I'll hopefully go do that today. What else do I got? So, what else do I got? So this is at Huntstock this year in Massachusetts. I was working the admissions booth and guy came through and, he was thanking me for putting Huntstock on in the podcast and things like that. He's been a fan of the podcast, watching it for a couple of years. And he starts telling me, he goes, you and I need to talk. And, I'm like, let's do it. Let's do it. Let's do it right now. What's going on? And he's like, I love the podcast. You're obviously, you like to hunt in the suburbs. He goes, I'm a big woods guy. I track. I got a camp up in Maine. I don't really do much bow hunting. But I got a property, couple acres in the suburbs, and there's a giant buck that's been on my property and in the public behind it for the last few years. I think he said he's been watching it for 6 or 7 years. So this is another old buck. And when I saw pictures and videos of this deer, I mean, it is one of those insane, you wouldn't believe even lives around type of bucks. It's got to be at least in the 180s, and it could be in the 190s. It's really hard to tell with velvet sometimes, but I mean, it's a monster. And there's 18 points on it. There's it's got double splits. It's got huge long main beams, and I mean, it's just one of those deer. I saw it and I was like, holy crap. I was like, and you're not hunting this deer? He's like, I hardly ever bow hunt. He's like, and I don't have a lot of time to do it. But I would love for you to try and get the deer. So if you want to come hunt my property, do some scouting, let's do it. So that is that's far away from my house, but it's totally on my radar, and that's the second patch of woods that I've been in this year post Huntstock. Um, that was the first one that I went to, actually, right after Huntstock, because how can I not try to get some more intel on this deer? So I brought 4 or 5 cameras out to that patch. I was waiting on getting these Moultrie Mobile Edge 2 Pros, so I'll be going back up there and putting 4 or 5 of those in that area. But it's I see this as an amazing puzzle. Yeah, I got a great tip. And normally I love the process of just finding all of my own deer, getting some history with the deer. I love that entire process. But when, I got this tip, and this guy was nice enough to say, yeah, come, you can park in my driveway. You can hunt my property. You can use it as access. I mean, I haven't done that in the past, but when you see this deer, I probably won't show any pictures or videos of it, and I probably have a very low percentage chance of shooting him. But if I do, when you guys see the picture, you'll understand why I didn't share any of the videos. But the cool part about this is now it's a new puzzle. I only know a few bits of information about this deer. He says this deer only goes through his area usually in December. It's a late season spot for him for whatever reason. So I don't think he's going to be there early season. I walked the entire patch of public land behind his house, and it's kind of a weird piece of woods. A lot of it is open. A lot of it, like the middle part of this piece of woods, is like all open. And that's where all the tree stands were. I think I counted 4 tree stands, maybe 5 in there. And it was weird. They were all on this flat, wide open, patch, area. I don't know why. Maybe it's mostly gun hunters. Maybe, I don't know. But I don't think, if I'm hunting back there, I'm not going to be anywhere near that area. I'm going to be on the edges in the thicker stuff. There is quite a bit of thick stuff on the edges. There's some big bordering properties. There's a lot of rock walls. There's openings in the rock walls, and there's quite a bit of suburban, edge to it as well. So anyway, I walked it. I put up quite a few cameras in there. I put up one of the old Moultrie mobile cameras, and I've gotten a few pictures and some bucks, but they're small. They were spikes and 4-pointers, things like that. So again, I don't think this buck is in there early season, and I don't think he's summering in there. So that's a part of the puzzle now. When I go back with these Moultrie Mobile Edge 2s Pros, I'm going to be putting them and deploying them, like zooming out and on X, looking at the different patches of woods around there that are huntable. Even if they're a mile apart, just expand that radius out until I find where is this deer's, where is he summering at? Where is he daylighting at in the summer? Where is he possibly going to be in the early season? Once I start getting a few pictures of him in those locations, then hone in on it. Without, you don't want to put this is an old deer, and he's obviously very smart. It's in a very suburban area. If he's not in the place that I already have cameras out where I've got this access, and I have already zoomed out and looked. He has to travel across quite a few main roads to get to any other sizable piece of woods. It's possible he's just holing up in between 4 backyards or something, and he's not really that far away, so he's not traveling, super far. But I think he's going to be in one of these, more sizable patches of woods, 90 to 200 acres. And all of those patches are about, I don't know, at least a mile away from where my access is. So he's a smart deer because he's obviously only traveling, because I don't think a lot of people know about this deer. Maybe they do. Maybe everybody's being tight-lipped about it. But to get that old, this guy thinks he's 10 years old, 9 or 10. To get that old, be that big, and be traveling across all these main roads, and not really be that visible, he's got to be super smart. So I'm not going to my goal is to get into set up these cameras as recon cameras in a few patches of those woods a mile away from this spot, right? Set those cameras up, maybe put 2 in each of those places. And when I get daylight pictures, go in there one more time and look for the scrapes, look for where he's possibly bedding, look for where the acorns are now, look for white oaks that have a ton of acorns up, that'll be dropping maybe a little bit later. Look for all of that stuff and get that done in 2 visits. The first visit, I'll probably put the cameras up on scrapes, places where I see big buck sign. I'll look for actual big hoof prints because he's a big old deer. His feet are going to be big. So look for that in the mud and just try to, put my cameras up in the best place where maybe I don't have to go back in and move them. But if I, let's say I just get one daylight video or picture of him going by in one spot and that's it for the week, I'm going to need to go in there and kind of hone in a little more and move those cameras. But that's the plan. Try to find out where he's summering, try to, theorize where he's going to be in the early season, and then have this spot with this access as my backup plan. Where if I can't figure out his early season, or I don't, I do figure him out, but I don't get him early season, I already know this kind of history that he's going to be over if he does the same thing he's been doing, which old bucks have the same patterns. They're just like an old man. They have habits and they like to stick to them. I'll know where I can catch up with him in the late season. But I just think this is a buck that probably will get killed this year, because every year he's getting older. He's, that's more history for other hunters to have with him, more chance people are seeing him and getting in on him. I just feel like in my bones he's going to die this year. And it's really cool that the listener gave me that tip, give me that access, and now I can try to piece together that puzzle. So I'll keep everybody up to date on that deer too. So there's those are 3 of my target bucks. The 4th one that I really was excited about this year in the off season is this one. If you guys remember during shed season, I found this one first. It was laying like that, and then 2 days later I matched him up and found this. And this is he's a buck I've been watching for many, many years. He's closer to home. He's a beauty. This as an 8-pointer scored close to 150. He's just got lots and lots of mass. He's got good tine length. The main beams are super long. Just an awesome deer. And I was real excited because I had a lead on a great possible permission spot to be able to hunt him this year. So I was so excited in the off season for that. And it just turned out that's not going to work out. What I was being told about I don't think the person that was going to get me the permission and was kind of telling me to keep in touch, he never told me that somebody else had been hunting there for a long time. They've got a program in there where people are hunting, and they've been running the program for 15 years and just kind of keeping it on the DL. But I had thought that nobody had been hunting in there and it was possibly going to be opened up, and that I was on the top of the list to be able to manage the hunt in there and hunt it, because I live close and I hunt during the week and I could shoot a lot of does and blah, 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 blah. But anyway, just didn't end up working out. There are a couple of pieces of property in the area that are much smaller than this big one that I need to knock on some doors. Not going to be able to do that probably until mid-September, but there are a few pieces of property where I still could get permission where it wouldn't take this buck out of the possibility of being hunted. So, because I got a lot of history with him, I see him a lot. He's a nice 10-pointer this year, Like I said, those sheds there were about 150 inches if he had an 18-inch spread, and he does have an 18-inch spread. As a 10-pointer this year, I don't know, he's probably a 155, could be a little higher than that. Again, it's hard to tell in velvet, but I've seen him already a couple of times this summer, and I would love to be able to hunt them, but we'll see. And I'll keep you guys up to date on that one as well. And then, there's a ton of other bucks that are around. There's a few go-to spots. I need to get boots on the ground in all my go-to spots, check on the acorns, get a few cameras up in each of them, because you never know what deer is going to pop up. You never know who's going to, maybe a buck last year that was a 115. If you guys watched the payoff, the video I put out last year, there was he was about 115 inch, 118 8-pointer that I had a lot of encounters with. He was the one that stared me down and had that encounter with the smaller buck, and you heard a couple of snort wheezes in that, and he was right under my tree for like 30 minutes that day. I just saw him a lot, and there's a lot of footage of him in that video. He was like 115 inch, 3-year-old. And who knows, this year he could have made a jump. He might be 135. You'd never know. But the biggest bucks in that patch of woods got killed last year. So a little bit discouraging on that front. That's why I'm going to kind of save that place for last, but I got to get cameras in that spot. It's just that's the spot with the great access I was talking about earlier, where you got to get creative, and just the way the access is, the way the wind in there is, the way the terrain features are, the way the neighboring properties are all set up. It's just a great spot. And so I'm excited to get some cameras in there, and who knows, maybe there's some target bucks in there too. And my goal this season is I want to get 2 bucks with the bow again. Last year I didn't get one, so I'm feeling a little antsy. And I want to get two nice bucks with a bow. They don't have to be giants, but I just went through the deer that I would love to catch up with. That's what I'm targeting this year. Just those bucks. And then if anything of that caliber comes in, or there's a really cool scenario that happens where I'm like, if I'm on the ground or something, and that 115 comes up, I might shoot him. You just never know until the moment happens. Dude, I'm very excited for this season, and doing some more scouting, getting some sets hung up. But before I can do that, so the other thing that's happening is I'm going to Maine with my dad next week. Well, now it's August 27th. I'm going September 1st, Sunday through Saturday, and we're going to bear camp with John Altman, the Hunting ME crew, and some other friends that are also going to be sharing camp. First bear hunt for me, first bear hunt for my dad. Yeah, we deer hunt in Vermont, and we see bear sometimes, and sometimes we shoot at them, and but neither of us have ever shot a bear, ever killed one. And so we're excited to go and hunt over some baits up in Maine with John. Love John, and sharing camp with a bunch of good guys. So that's happening September 1st. The first whole week of September we'll be up there. I want to shoot one with my bow. I'm also going to bring a gun, have it in the stand in case something comes in last light and I can't see my pins. I'm going to have that as a backup, but the goal is to get one with a bow, and I just would love to see my dad get one. My dad how old is my dad? He is now 79 years old. So he's always wanted to get a bear. That would make my trip if he does, even if I don't get one. I just would love to have my dad get one. But from everything we're hearing, the baits are getting absolutely ripped up. There's already competition on the baits. Some of the bigger bears are already kind of trying to push off the smaller bears. And when that happens, I don't know much about bear hunting, but from talking with John, when that happens, then the bears will, because they're competitive now, they know they want to get there a little earlier before the other bear does. So it kind of shifts that action from last light and darkness closer and closer into daylight. So it sounds awesome. Sounds like the baits are getting hammered, and we'll give you guys updates on that. I had to change my arrow setup a little bit, and so I've got to reshoot my bow, which is another thing I got to get done in the next couple of days here, and sight it in for the new arrow setup. Just going the Axis match grade arrows, and a little heavier setup, and instead of using the Whitetail Special Grim Reaper broadheads, I'm going with a shorter one, but staying with Grim Reaper. And yeah, that's it. So we'll keep you updated on the bear hunt. Hopefully, do a podcast from camp up there, doing a remote camp, and I'm going to be filming it too. I got a new camera for filming this year, just an upgrade on what I've been using the past few seasons. So that'll get its first work up at bear camp. And the plans to release, do some semi-live stuff throughout the season, just to keep folks updated if they want to tag along. Put some of my hunt footage out, throughout the whole season. But also, I really enjoyed putting together that film, the payoff from last year's hunt. So I do want to do that again. So I don't know how much semi-live stuff I'm going to put out. Some of the better clips I might want to save for the film. But we'll definitely be keeping folks updated on video throughout the season too. And then podcast-wise, the plans to do a podcast every week throughout the season again, and coming out on Sunday mornings. So get back into that mode. We've got some great interviews. I'm going to do local guys again, friends of mine in the network. And I also have another podcast with Tom Miranda that we did at my deer camp that will come out. That's a great podcast. I have this Living Legends panel with from Huntstock, New York, where Hal Blood, Joe Donito, and Lanny Benoit all got up on stage. And I got to interview all three of them at the same time, which was really cool for me because I've interviewed all of those guys individually. They've all have their own Living Legend series podcast on YouTube. If you haven't seen Hal's yet, go check that one out because that's the latest one to drop. But having all three of them on stage at one time was awesome. It was an honor to do it, and we just basically. I gave them different scenarios and asked each of them to go through how they would attack it. And it was cool to see the similarities and the differences and how they hunt. There's a lot of common ground. Obviously, there's a lot of things they do the same when you're tracking, but there's a ton of stuff they do differently. So it was cool to get three different legends' perspectives on how they would attack different scenarios. So that podcast is going to be coming out probably in mid-October or late October, just before the tracking season gets into full swing. So be on the lookout for that podcast. And we're just going to keep you guys updated all season as much as we can on our seasons. And we'll be dropping some of those episodes that I have in the can, like that Living Legends panel and the Tom Miranda podcast from my deer camp in Vermont. So that's the basic outlook on everything. And then we'll do a quick Huntstock recap for everybody. If you guys didn't get to go this year, I'll just let you know kind of what happened and how the shows went. And Huntstock, New York was first. That was a first-year event, and it was awesome. We had about the same amount of attendees as Huntstock, Massachusetts did in its first year, and that's what our goal was. We just wanted to see if we move the event to another location. Can you replicate what we did with Huntstock, Massachusetts? And we're not going to do any more Northeastern shows, by the way. We eventually might do a third show somewhere. Maybe it's the Midwest, or maybe it's in the South or something like that. But 2 shows this year was a ton of work. It was more than, I don't want to add a third to it unless I can hire some employees. So I think at least the next 2-3 years, we're going to stick with these 2, New York and Massachusetts, because it was just a ton of work, and I don't think I could work any more or any harder. So, but Huntstock, New York was awesome. It went off great. We had Bushnell there with a rifle range. Woodman Arms was there collaborating with Bushnell. You could test different Woodman Arms out on the range. That was a super successful, fun part of the show. and unique to New York because we can't shoot guns at our Massachusetts show in the Massachusetts venue, but New York is on a shooting range. They have all the licensing for it. So it was really cool to be able to shoot guns. And next year we'll bring in some more gun brands, rifle brands, shotgun brands, and we'll have more live shooting opportunities in New York. The other cool thing about New York, one of the other cool things was attendee camping. We had probably 15 or 20 different campers there for the weekend, and all of those people had a blast, and they're going to be back camping next year. And anybody that I talked to that didn't know that there was camping on site, it sounds like they're like, I can't wait to camp next year. It'll make the experience that much better, and it really does. We have awesome after parties. We got live music. We've got the bar open till 10 o'clock in New York. And it's just kind of nice to be able to enjoy that and then walk up to your campsite a couple 100 yards away. So that was a really cool addition, and it went really well. It was interesting. The demographic in New York was different than our Massachusetts demographic. We had 4 saddle companies there. It sounds like the saddle companies didn't do great comparatively to how they do in Massachusetts. And what I was hearing from a lot of them was that maybe it's just not a big saddle market. The New York show, there's a lot of farm country there. There's a lot of guys that hunt on farms. They do some gun hunting. Maybe they're more blind guys. And then you've got the Adirondacks right there. So a lot of tracking. And I just don't know how much mobile hunting there is in that area. But I also think it's a first year show, and it's really hard to gauge some of that stuff. And next year we'll have so much more time. We'll have a proof of concept of the show, and marketing a show in the second year is so much easier than marketing it in the first year when this is something brand new that nobody has heard about. So we'll see. We're going to try to make it better for the saddle brands in New York. And do some more stuff around saddle hunting, maybe get some more seminar speakers about saddle hunting and promote that more. Because everything, I come from a sponsorship background. I'm always really highly in tune to how the sponsors did. If they didn't do well, or if a particular type of category didn't do well, I need to figure out why that is. And I like figuring that out because I want every single exhibitor who pays to be there to have a great time and to feel like they got the value out of the show. And if they didn't, I always welcome any sponsor to be completely honest with me. Let me know how your experience was at Huntstock. And if you didn't get the value, I always will make sure that you get it. Whether it's with a make good, or we come up with a different, way to highlight your brand at the next year's show. But for the most part, at Huntstock, these first 3 years, it's like 95% of the exhibitors did really well. We're extremely happy with it, are coming back next year. And every year, there's 5% that just, they're like, well, we tried it, probably wasn't for me. And they won't come back. But that's fine. I mean, that a 95% retention rate in the sponsorship world is pretty insane. At Spartan Race, when I was there, I mean, it was probably a 40% retention rate. And every year, 60% of the sponsors were dropping out. 60% were leaving. And that was because, I don't know, I just never thought that the festival experience at Spartan was that great. And I used to make suggestions and want, have certain ideas on how to make it better. There were times there when a sponsor would come in and they'd say, hey, I've got this really great idea. I want to do this, and this at the event to make the event better for the racer. And my thought and my philosophy is, great, that's awesome. And you're adding to the experience of the racer. And at Huntstock, you'd be adding to the experience of the attendee. And that should be all that we care about, is making the experience better. But at the previous company I was at, sometimes that was looked at as like, oh, you want to do this, and this. Well, that's going to give you a lot more exposure than our original deal. So let's jack the price up on that. And that's just not the right way to do business. And that's what leads to a 40% retention rate, as opposed to what we're seeing right now. Huntstock is about 95%. Um, so yes, there are some levels of, the more sponsorship assets that you're getting at the event. If you're sponsoring a stage, you're sponsoring the 3D archery course, you're sponsoring one of the main entertainment parts of the event. Yes, that's a lot more exposure. Yes, there's a higher price point for that. But I'm talking about things like, let's say next year there was somebody at Huntstock in Massachusetts that said, "Hey, we should do some rabbit stuff. I could bring my rabbit dogs. I could build a little, fenced in enclosure with my rabbit dogs, release a couple rabbits in there and show people how, the dogs work the rabbits." And I was like, "Yeah, dude, that sounds amazing." So like that type of an experience, because they're utilizing a larger footprint, I'm not just going to charge them for that larger space. They'll get their 10 by 10 spot and pay this the price for a 10 by 10 like all the sponsors do. But we have space. We're on a farm. That enclosure part doesn't have to be right in the festival, taking up valuable real estate for other exhibitors. We can move that off to the edge of a field somewhere, and have time demonstrations. We're going to do this at 9 a.m. and 2 p.m. So that's the kind of thing. Like in my previous job, they would have seen that, and they charged every single thing by the square foot, even if it was something that's going to add to the experience. And anyway, I just wanted to give you guys, I probably rambled a little bit there, but give a little insight into how I always think about Huntstock. And I'm always thinking about the sponsor and the exhibitor, how well they did, how we can make it better for them, and how they make it better for the attendee. We don't want to have exhibitors and sponsors that are boring, that don't add anything to the festival area. So that's just how we think about everything. If you have an idea, you have a cool experience you want to do, you have a grand idea, this big idea, like bring it to me, dude, because I just want the experience to just elevate every single year for everybody. But I forget where that started, but Huntstock, New York. Yeah, we were talking about the saddle brands. So we had about, I think, 40 exhibitors. We had about 1,500 attendees, somewhere in that ballpark, for Huntstock, New York, which was awesome. And next year, I expect it to probably be 70 to 80 exhibitors. The attendees to go up, and campsite rentals will go up. Like I just think next, if it follows kind of what Massachusetts did from year 1 to year 2, that's what we're hoping to see in New York next year. Bo Martonic came up. We had Josh Ilderton and the Untamed came up. Joe DeNito was there, and Hal Blood and Lanny Benoit, Rodney Elmer, and a lot of the staples, Just Hunt Club and Brett Joy and John Lewis. It was a really great group of guys. It was really cool to test out that new venue. We'll definitely be back there, and we've got dates. We've got dates for the shows next year already locked in, but we're not going to announce it until November, until we've got the website updated and we've got ticket sales ready to go, because we've got some big names coming. I've already locked in 2 legendary bow hunters for Huntstock, Massachusetts. We're working on also attracting some new seminar speakers for New York. But I mean, Huntstock, Massachusetts is going to be bananas next year. I mean, when you guys see this lineup of who's coming, it's just going to be crazy. So we're not going to tell the dates now. We're not going to say who's coming to Huntstock yet, and we're still working on more. By the way, my goal after this year, I was like, look, I've got 4 or 5 legends that I want to get to Huntstock next year, and I want to get 2 or 3 of them. I'm not going to get all of them all at the same time, but if I can get 2 or 3, I'll be happy. And we've already got 2. So between now and November, who knows what it's going to turn into. But after talking with the farm in Massachusetts, we're starting to get close to that capacity mark. If you guys remember, in year 1 at Huntstock, we didn't know, the farm didn't know, they didn't know capacities on their farm. there was a little bit of nervousness and uncertainty about what was going to happen. So we capped the ticket sales. We didn't get to that cap in year one. And now it turns out the capacity of the farm is much bigger than we thought. But now we're starting to get up to that, close to that new capacity mark. So I think that with all these new seminar speakers, with Huntstock, Massachusetts entering its 4th year, with new entertainment and stuff that we're bringing in and some cool things that we'll announce in November, we're probably going to go back to a capped ticket event, and I do think it's going to sell out. So be ready when we make the announcement in November. Commit to the event, buy your tickets early. If you buy your tickets before January 31st, which is what we did this past year, we're going to have a special raffle, and we'll draw that. Last year it was the Expedition X-Lite bow, a Bushnell package, and a trophy line package. It was worth like $4,000, something like that. And that was kind of the early bird online raffle. We did it in February, but it was up to January 31st. If you got your tickets, you got entered into that, and you got double the door prize entries when you go to Huntstock. So we're going to do that again this year. We'll figure out what that online raffle is. But all of that combined with the new speakers that are coming to Huntstock and everything that's going to be happening next year, you're going to have to get your tickets early. So make sure you're a part of that. We will always reserve a couple hundred tickets per day. So whatever our capacity is, let's say it's 4,000 people, we'll reserve, we'll have 3,400 of those online, and we will reserve a couple hundred for walk-ups. But if you're going to be a walk-up, you have to get there early, because once those, if there's a capacity and we reach it, we're not going to be able to get more than that. It's just an insurance liability. It's a safety liability. There's a whole bunch of stuff on the back end. So I'm not saying you won't be able to get tickets at the door if we sell out online. You will, but we're going to reserve a limited number of tickets for that. So don't bank on it. Get your tickets online, get double the door prize entries, and just commit early. So we'll come out with those dates. We'll come out with all those announcements in November. Stay tuned for that. We didn't do the recap of Huntstock Mash yet, so I'll do that real quick. Huntstock Film Festival was amazing. Went off awesome, just better than expected. We expected 200 people to show up. 300 people showed up for it. We got 15 new films submitted, and a lot of great films. The top 5 films were all really good. There were some great films, some good films, and from 10th to 6th place, but those top 5 were just head and shoulders above the best, above the rest. And the top 3 were awesome. We gave away $5,000 in prize money thanks to Vault Drinks. Check out vaultdrinks.com. They put up all the prize money for the film festival, basically kickstarted our ability to promote the idea. They jumped on it early last year. We wanted to make sure we had a high dollar amount prize money to reward the Northeastern filmmakers. Again, it's a film festival just for Northeastern filmmakers and hunts that were filmed in the Northeast. And we wanted to have a high level of prize money that is, comparative to some of the biggest hunting film festivals in the country. So we did that, and it was thanks to Vault Drinks. So check them out. They're a great energy drink for hunters because they don't give you jitters, no caffeine. Check those guys out, and we hope Vault will be back next year. The film festival next year is also, I don't know if we're going to increase prize money, if what we're going to do with it yet, because we had all the seats were filled, 200 seats, plus we had 100 people standing. That can't continue to grow, so we'll have to figure something out with film festival tickets next year. If you're a VIP 3-day VIP pass holder, then you get into that for free. So depending on how many of those we sell, it might just be reserved for VIP pass holders and then the filmmakers who are in the top 10. But we've got a lot of figuring out to do. Those are all good things to have to figure out. If you're listening to this, you are an exhibitor, a sponsor, a hunting related sponsor. You want to come to Huntstock next year, reach out. we're probably, what did we have, 82 exhibitors this year, which was comparable to last year. I think we had 80. So very same in numbers. We had a lot of sponsors just had things going on internally at their companies and changes of managers and marketing people and stuff. So we didn't get some of those brands like Sig Sauer back, Ruger and Mossberg and Quiet Cat, Kuyu. A lot of those guys this year either had something happening internally or a change of contact, or they had another show that they were committed to for the weekend, because we were a little bit late in getting our dates out. So that's why this year I'm working on it so much more now. I want to get it done early. We do have the dates. I am communicating those dates to the sponsors already, but not going to be talking about it really to you guys until November, and we've got tickets ready to go. But a lot of those guys that were there in 2023 that were gone this year in 2024, you'll see them coming back in 2025 as well. But if you are an exhibitor, you want to get a space, reach out. I think we only have room for 100 exhibitors. We want to. There were a couple. Let me talk about this real quick. It's rare that I hear anything bad about Huntstock. But Pat Burns told me that he had one bad experience, and a couple of guys were leaving Huntstock, and they said, "Worst show ever" to him. And he's like, he thought they were joking. And because I don't know, I just don't know how you could think it's the worst show ever. It's the energy level's insane. But he dug a little deeper, and they were like, "Yeah, no, we go to shows to book hunts, and there was no outfitters." Well, we did. We had 2 outfitters there. 3 if you count Big Woods Bucks, but I always think of them on content creation seminars, but they are an outfitter. But we had 3 outfitters there, but I do realize that some people like to go to shows to book hunts. So we are going to make an effort to have an outfitter section next year and get at least 10 outfitters. So if you're an outfitter and you're listening to this and you want to be a part of that outfitter section, reach out, please, because I listen to the feedback about the show, ways to improve it, things that went good, things that didn't go so good. And I just would hate to neglect that part of the hunting space. Our show is product heavy. We got a lot of new products, brands, and hunting products and stands and scent companies. And it's more product focused, plus content creator and seminar focused and podcaster, YouTube. But I don't want to not have outfitters, and it's not like I ever did that on purpose either. It's just my outreach. I haven't spent a lot of time on reaching out to outfitters to get them there. So what we would like to see is outfitters from different parts of the country, some Maine bear outfitters, some moose outfitters, maybe 1 or 2 northeastern whitetail outfitters, a midwestern whitetail outfitter. And whitetail obviously being king, outfitters from across the country would be awesome. So just keep that in mind. If you know an outfitter, if you've gone to one that you love, reach out to them, see if they want to be a part of Huntstock. We've got a great demographic. I'm sure it wasn't just those 2 guys that were leaving that told Pat it was the worst show ever. It's probably not just those guys. It's probably hundreds of other people that would like to see more outfitters at Huntstock too. So we're going to make an effort to do that. Other than that, there's so much we could talk about and how awesome Huntstock was this year. And I'm so proud of all the volunteers that come out year in and year out that help out at Huntstock. And I'm grateful for them. We have a great volunteer program. We take care of the volunteers. They get double the door prize entries. They have a separate volunteer raffle with some great prizes that we do on Sunday. And for every day you volunteer, you get entered into that raffle once. So a lot of the volunteers volunteer all 3 days, have fun doing it. You're not breaking your back. The hardest part is setting up and breaking down everything at the end and packing the trailer up. But it literally, I think it takes 2 hours to pack that trailer at the end. It's not too bad. And it's just a great experience. We'll do posts about volunteers later, but I want to thank a few people that are there every single year. and I don't want to miss anybody, but I'm just going to go off the top of my head. Obviously, Shiloh is there every single year, helping us out with the door prizes, helping us out on the merchandise, just being an awesome person, keeping us organized. She does a great job. Thank you, Shiloh. Porter, who is not a volunteer, he's a paid contractor, manages the festival area, but he started out as a volunteer year one, and he was the only one that came up to me. He's like, hey, I want to be a part of this. If you need help in the future, if there's anything else I can do, take on a larger role, keep me in mind. So I did, and Porter's been great. He's a big help, and just wanted to thank Porter. We have Nate Payton, who every single year is helping out in our registration booth. He's an awesome volunteer, just a great guy. Thank you, Nate. Steve Davis, he comes and volunteers every single year. Thank you, Steve. Paez and Eric, my guys. Those guys volunteer at Huntstock, and they're huge helps every year. They're joys to be around. Same thing, Justin Alvarez the last couple of years, and Randy Moulton. Randy has been a super big help too, but Justin and Randy kind of a duo these days, and those guys, I can't thank you guys enough. Randy has been awesome with helping pack that trailer and get the weight distributed the right way and things like that. And so just again, thank you guys so much. Dave Fisher is there every single year, and his primary job is setting up and breaking down the White Duck Outdoors tents, and he does a great job with that. And he helps out, a bunch of different places around the festival too, manning the 3D archery tent sometimes. He's a great guy. And Dave, we appreciate your support every year. And Cheryl this year, came on board and to be our volunteer coordinator and kind of keep the volunteers, on certain jobs and make sure that people are staffed in the areas we need them the most. And she did a great job at both events this year. So thank you to Cheryl. Check out American Daughters of Conservation, which is an organization that Cheryl's helping to run in the Northeast. Really cool organization of female outdoors women who love the outdoors and want to conserve the traditions in our lands and things like that. So go check out American Daughters of Conservation. Shoot, if I forgot you on the volunteer thank yous, it's not on purpose. So thanks for volunteering, and I still got a little bit of a foggy brain. It was a crazy summer of work. I was overloaded with work, and then I got sick, and then I've been on vacation, so I'm still not into 100% form. So again, if I forgot you and you're a volunteer every single year, thank you, and I apologize for forgetting your name. All right, that's it. It's been an hour. These podcasts are weird. I hate doing it by myself. Stream of consciousness is kind of a strange thing. I much rather have guests. And reach out if you're around. You're a Massachusetts hunter. You got something good to share. You got a good story, or you've got some strategies, things like that to share. Reach out. Let's do a podcast. I'm starting to build the list of all the guests here for the next 12 weeks. And we'll see you guys on the next one. Hopefully it'll be from the bear camp up in Maine, and hopefully after my dad's got a bear. And if I'm lucky enough, maybe we both get bears. But we'll see you on that next podcast, guys. And thanks again for all your support.